Hello, fellow Castle fans. Welcome to the Old Haunt. This is a podcast, brand new, all about the show Castle. We're going to talk about episodes, Nathan, Stana, the rest of the incredible cast. Um, my name's Megan. I'm going to be your podcast host. I know those of you that may have viewed our sneak peek that I posted on Facebook and YouTube may be expecting me to have a partner in crime. Due to some real life issues getting in the way of that, that's not going to work out for the moment. So I'm going to fly solo for a while. Um, Hopefully, you guys will bear with me, and hopefully, in the future, things will work out so that he can join us. I know it's much more fun for you guys to listen to a podcast with two people bantering, and it's much easier for me to create a podcast if I have someone that can kind of share the load. But I'm going to try this for a while by myself. Hopefully, I'll keep it interesting. Hopefully, I'll keep some things going between Twitter and Facebook that you guys can interact with me on the podcast so that it'll be fun and entertaining for everybody. A little bit about me so that you get a little bit of perspective on where I'm coming from, my opinions on Castle. Um, I'm 27. Obviously, I'm a girl, so I do have a little bit of the girly romantic notions going for me. Um, I was not with Castle from the beginning. I will go ahead and get that out right now. I've been with Castle since TNT started showing the episodes. A couple reasons for that. Number one, when it first started, um, I didn't have time to get into another show. At the moment, I didn't have time for shows that I was already watching, so just never watched it. Uh, then by the time that I did have time for it, and I knew that it would be a show that I would really enjoy because I had heard about the Castle and Beckett relationship, and I'll be honest, relationships are usually what attracts me into a show, usually what sucks me in, um, as the rest of my family can tell you. uh, but anyway, by the time that I knew that I would like it, it was like season two, season three, and I'm a little bit OCD. I really do not like to start a show somewhere in the middle. Um, and I knew that there was this big grand story. It wasn't like a syndicated show so that I could kind of pick up an episode here and there and it would all be good. I knew that it had a story and the story arcs, and I would be so confused if I started in the middle and had no clue what was going on. So I waited. Um, Also because, like I said, relationships are kind of what sucks me into shows. There have been some good shows that had a great payoff. X Files was awesome. Uh, Star Trek: The Next Generation kind of finally got it, uh, thanks to the movies. Um, but there were also some shows that I really felt that I got screwed over by the showrunners. So uh, because I was not familiar with Andrew Marlowe, I did not know how he was going to handle this. Um, I kind of wanted to wait and see how long he would make Castle and Beckett dance around each other because, quite frankly, after about 4 seasons, maybe sometimes you can get away with five if you're really creative. 5 seasons of dancing around the whole will they or won't they, oh, they are perfect together. This is just not natural for them not to have at least done something by now. Um, if it had gotten to that point, I honestly probably never would have watched it. Because, like I said, I've been screwed over in the past by shows. Didn't get the payoff that I felt the fans deserved. Jag was one. Donald Rosario. Uh, Not going to get into that, but there's a reason that I do not watch NCIS on a regular basis. Um, he screwed me over with Jag. There's no way at all I was going to let that happen again. Brad Kern's another showrunner that I hate. Not partly because of relationships and charm, but also because he's just a horrible showrunner. There was no payoff whatsoever in the Charm series finale. Law and Order SVU is another one. Kind of got screwed over on the relationship end. So anyway, long story short, I wanted to make sure before I invested in another couple that I was actually going to get a payoff that I liked and get to see a natural story. And I think, especially in these times, it's a natural progression. You can only have so much sexual chemistry for so long before it's just ridiculous, and that in real life people would have already moved on, moved past it. That would be it. So thankfully, Andrew Marlowe is of the mindset that I am, that getting shows coupled together does not ruin the show. It's not moonlighting. If you have good enough writers, you can write the story for it. And I've been saying this for years, years and years and years, since like back in the days of X Files, that if you have a good enough showrunner, a good enough writing cast, interesting enough characters, if you get them together in the middle of your series, you're still going to be able to tell the stories that you want to tell. Um, there are stories that you can tell that you are only able to tell if your characters are in a relationship, that you wouldn't be able to tell if your characters were not in a relationship. I've been saying this for years. So imagine my surprise when I'm watching some YouTube interviews with the cast and Stana says the same thing. I literally almost fell off my bed laughing. I was in shock. I mean, it was ridiculous. She said pretty much the exact same thing that I said 10 years ago, that I've been saying to people from 10 years ago, um, about how it can work. And thankfully, Andrew Marlowe buys into that, um, because otherwise, honestly, I probably wouldn't have gotten into the show. Um, but I did. TNT started airing it, so I got to see it from the beginning, which was really good. Because, like I said, I'm kind of OCD, so I don't really like to start a show in the middle. Although I will say I have seen all of season 5, even though I have not seen the entire series yet. TNT's up to season 4 episodes, so I'm a few away. But I did start season 5, knowing the Castle and Becca got together before I actually saw the past seasons, because I wanted to be current. Um, I think that that's important, because otherwise I would have to wait until TNT got season 5 to be able to catch up. Just didn't want to do that, so I went ahead and started. But anyway, a couple other things about me may kind of make their way into my podcast. As I said before, X Files and Star Trek were kind of shows that I watched. So obviously I'm fans of that. I'm a little bit of a geek. I really like classic films. I honestly don't think there will ever be a film greater than Gone with the Wind. So there's that. Also, I'll just give you guys a heads up. I record this podcast from my house, and dogs live in my house. So if you guys randomly hear some barking, just just tune it out, ignore it. No big deal. They'll shut up in a minute, I promise. But yeah, that's basically me. As far as the podcast goes, this is my very first podcast ever. I'm a podcast virgin. I got the idea. I was like, oh, I'd really like to have a podcast about something. And I went into a castle chat room and started talking to Nate, who is my partner in crime. He's kind of, he helped me come up with the name, and hopefully, like I said, in the future, things will work out so that he can be with me on the podcast. But anyway, you guys heard him on the sneak peek that I posted. If you don't already know, you can follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is the old haunt 1890, because the old haunt was already taken. Also, you can follow us on Facebook. I'm going to try to load up the podcast to that as well as to YouTube. Um, we're going to have a segment where we talk about like a castle question of the week. Um, you guys can answer that either on Twitter, on Facebook. We're going to have the top posts, or, if we only have so many posts, kind of like this week, that will make it into the show. At some point, I may take some call-ins. The only way right now I can do call-ins is with Skype. I don't do this podcast live. Obviously, I record it. So if I do decide to take some call-ins, it's going to have to be a Skype conversation. It's going to be recorded and then edited into the podcast. So just a heads up, if you guys decide that you want to actually, be on the show, if that's something you guys would be interested in, shoot me a message on Twitter or Facebook. We can work out on the details and make that happen. Because I think it's interesting to see other perspectives other than my own. Because like I said, I came to Castle late. I didn't come to it from the beginning. And we all have different opinions. That's what makes everything so interesting. Um, so, it'd be nice to have some call-ins, some people to have varying opinions that we can discuss. Um, but first, before we get into episode discussion and whatnot, um, I'm going to start the show with talking about actors' current projects, what they've done recently, um, any current events like the Oscars. Obviously, just had the Oscars, and I don't care what anybody says. Seth MacFarlane was the best Oscar host ever. I have never ever watched an Oscar show from beginning to end, and I watched from beginning to end this year. Seth MacFarlane was the reason. Now I will say I did not like the Shatner bit. I do not like William Shatner. I make no secret of that. I think he's an ass. Do not like William Shatner. Do not like the character of Captain Kirk. I'm a Next Generation girl. So definitely did not like that. But other than that, best Oscar host ever. And I loved it. It was awesome. I know some people are like, oh, he had off color, jokes and stuff that didn't really work. Well, have you seen Family Guy? Have you seen American Dad? Did you really expect it was all going to be G rated? Honestly. Um, yeah. So, to those people who say, oh, he was horrible, I think you're crazy. And honestly, you get what you pay for. So, you knew how Seth MacFarlane was before you watched the show or before they got him to host it. So, you honestly should not have expected anything different. And if you didn't like it, then you shouldn't have watched the Oscars, or you should have recorded it and fast forwarded through all of Seth's, you know, jokes and stuff. As far as the cast of Castle goes, I know related to the Oscars, Stana was at a luncheon that was hosted. I think the Canadian consulate hosted it. She was the MC, and I know this because pictures of Stana blew up my Twitter feed, my own personal Twitter feed, as well as the Twitter feed for the show. Um, but yeah, so I knew this because how these pictures of Stana started. I got photobombed, which was fine. I don't care. She looks stunning. I will say she looks stunning. And honestly, this woman can probably look stunning wearing a potato sack. But anyway, that's a completely different point. Something that I'm sure I'll touch on later. And then the night after that, or 2 nights after that, she was at the Independent Spirit Awards, and again, absolutely stunning. Now she wore all pink to that. I do not like pink, at least not on me. I'm not a pink girl at all. But I mean, she made me think, yeah, pink can actually work. Like I said, she was very lovely, very stunning. I will say I absolutely love her ring. I'm sure people have seen the pictures of her punching the camera. Not really punching. Don't freak out, guys. She didn't punch camera. Um, just the pose that she used with her, fist forward. And you can see this ring she was wearing. It is gorgeous. I have to say, I'm not a jewelry girl. I do not wear much jewelry at all. Uh, Mostly because I work in retail and it's not really a good idea to wear jewelry if you're going to be doing physical labor and moving stuff all day. So, but I will say, I loved her ring. It's definitely something I would wear on my off days. And like I said, even on my off days, I don't really wear jewelry all that much. I'm not a girly girl. But that's definitely a piece. If I had something that looked like it, I would totally wear it because it was awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, just look for her pictures on Twitter or Google the pictures from the Independent Spirit Awards. She was very lovely, gorgeous. I mean, just lovely. That's about sums it up for her. She's pretty much always lovely, stunning. Yeah. Something else she's got going on. I think she's already recorded it. But I know it's coming out soon. Is a new Superman comic book. I think it's a movie. It's not gonna compete with the whole Superman in theaters thing. But she does do a voice in it. It's a cartoon. Like I said, I think it's a movie. Uh, she does the voice of Lois Lane, and a little bit of an interesting tie-in with Castle with that. I have seen the original Superman cartoon, or maybe not the original, but the one that was on on a regular basis. I've seen it, and Dana Delaney, who you guys will remember was Special Agent Jordan Shaw in the season two two-parter. She actually voiced Lois Lane in the Superman TV show that was a cartoon. So it's kind of interesting that all these years later, and after making the appearance on Castle together, that Stana now voices Lois Lane. Um, I just thought that was an interesting time. You guys may or may not find that interesting. But I thought it was an interesting kind of 6 degrees type question. Also, in that Superman cartoon, Molly, who you guys know as Alexis, does the voice of Supergirl. And I have heard the clips on YouTube. If you guys have not, go ahead, search it. I forget the name exactly of the movie. Superman Unbound, I think maybe. YouTube it. Seriously, you'll thank me because it's pretty awesome. Especially if you are a comic book fan. If you're a Superman fan, I think you're really going to enjoy what Stana does with Lois and what Molly does with Supergirl. A couple weeks ago, Nathan hosted the WGA's Writers Guild Awards, um, which was online. I watched part of it. I'm not going to say I watched the whole thing, but I did. I watched part of it. Pretty good host, very dashing. I definitely would watch something he hosted again. You know, he was a good host. I mean, he wasn't Seth MacFarlane bringing down the house. He was a lot cleaner than Seth MacFarlane. But yeah, I'd watch him host something again. As far as other projects that they have going on, uh, I know Stana's got a couple movies in production, post production, something of the sort. I'd have to IMDb it. I'll get better on that next week, I promise. But anyway, we have a huge two-part episode to discuss, so I'm going to go ahead and move past the actors' current projects and get right on into the castle question of the week. So this week, for the question of the week, I kind of used the same question as last week, mostly because I decided to kind of wait and talk about both episodes together as one big event as opposed to two separate episodes, since it was really it was basically a 2 hour movie event just split up into 2 different weeks. So I went ahead and used the same question. I asked, it was an easy one. I asked, what was your favorite part of the episode? So the responses that I got on Twitter, I got 3 responses. Um, Salacious Castle said the cinematography. I thought I was watching a movie, not a TV show. I know I wasn't the only one with their mouth on the floor. Yeah, that's pretty right. It was a lot like Taken. Castle was definitely channeling his inner Liam Neeson. Moving on, Earthstorm25 said they weren't sure favorite is the word, but Nathan Fillion's work in the blood and van scene was amazing. Have to agree there. Definitely one of my favorite scenes, and not just Nathan's work in that scene, but Tamala was awesome in that scene, and Stana, which I'm going to talk later about Beckett's whole story through the art. But Stana and Tamala were both extremely awesome in that scene. Um, so I definitely agree there. Love Maddie Perry. Their response was, my favorite part was Beckett hugging Castle in the station. Gates might see, I don't care. So obviously Love Maddie Perry is a casket fan. I definitely agree with that. That was a very emotional scene. I loved it. And also continued on throughout the episode. I loved when she was holding his hands as he was telling about when Alexis was born. So I really love that. I'm glad to see that we're all sort of in agreement. I think we all sort of like overall. It was a good episode. It was a good couple of episodes. So it's really hard to pick one favorite thing. So I'm really glad to see that people are naming favorite things that I can actually talk a little bit about. So let's go over to our Facebook page, see what responses I've got there. Let's see. Trixie said, I liked when Richard and Alexis got back. There was a package. It was the book that he had gotten from his father years ago, and it was his father's way of letting him know that he had gotten out of there alive. He also was back with Alexis and back with Beckett. That was a great 2 episodes. Love the show. Never have missed one ever. So, yeah, a little bit of, if you haven't seen the episode, sorry. Spoiler alert, a little late. But yeah, I agree. It was a really good two-parter. As far as their two-parters go, it was probably the most intense. And I just loved his dad being in the episode, which I'm going to talk about once I get to episode discussion. Let's see what else I've got. Judy said she liked Paris and the ending where he tricks the bad guy. Well, that's you kind of it's Castle's dad. How can he not trick the bad guy? And I mean, him and Castle is that's their MO. That's they outsmart you. So that was very fitting. I agree with you. I like that as well. And our last response that we got to the Castle question of the week is from Adam. Said, I think my favorite parts of the two-parter is seeing Castle that emotional and vulnerable, and willingness part to further open up in front of Beckett. And also on the second part of the two-parter, we got to hear a little bit more of Castle's origin, and that the big reason why he got into writing in the first place was because of his father and the Casino Royale book. Yeah, that was pretty fitting. I like that as well. So thank you guys, all like 6 of you who answered my Castle question of the week. I'll be coming up with another question of the week and posting it on both Facebook and Twitter. So be on the lookout for that. Respond to it. If you want to give a more lengthy response, I recommend going on Facebook because Twitter kind of limits you. But go ahead, I'll pick the top responses, or if I only have a handful, I'll go ahead and read them all and put them in the show. So I think that's a great way for you guys to participate and get your opinions in the show. I'm not sure what I'm going to ask for next week, but it's definitely going to be something that I'm probably going to kind of maybe be talking about a little bit. So just be on the lookout for it. Hope you answer it. Hope you get involved. Share it with your friends. Like I said, on Twitter, our handle is The Old Haunt 1890. And on Facebook, just look up The Old Haunt. There's no spaces or anything in that on the handles. Look it up. Share it with your friends. Encourage them to post, to answer. I'd like to get as many people involved as possible. And also on Twitter, if you want to run the hashtag The Old Haunt, that would be very helpful and great as well. It'll help everybody, kind of track your responses, and helps me track the responses definitely anyway. So, thank you guys for answering, and we're going to go ahead and move on into our episode discussion and Save Alexis. For those of you who don't know, Save Alexis was the hashtag that ABC was using to promote it on Twitter. And actually, speaking of Twitter, Molly, who plays Alexis, live tweeted last night's episode and the episode last week. She had some pretty good answers to some pretty good questions. Some stuff I might hit on in a little bit. Also in the vein of Twitter, some trending topics from last night. Save Alexis obviously was trending at some point. Castle was trending in several places at several points. Beckett was trending, and Kate Beckett was trending. So that was all really cool. Like I said before, huge episode. As far as their two-parters go, definitely the most intense that I, or at least I think it's the most intense. Simply because Alexis is Castle's whole world. She's his daughter. Everything he does revolves around Alexis. And it has for so long. And the thought that she was stolen, and then he might never get her back, especially once he found out that she was the target and not Sarah, the other girl. It was just very intense. The implications that it could have had it gone south. Had Andrew Marlowe decided to go to a very bad place that I think I wouldn't have liked it, if Alexis had died. So I'm really glad that Andrew Marlowe decided not to kill her off, thankfully. But like I said before, I'm going to talk about both episodes together. I'm not going to really separate them because it was, they were tied together. It was basically a 2-hour event. They were just separated by a week. So I am going to talk about them together. I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. I'm going to talk about Beckett and her journey first, for the simple fact I'm probably going to take a lot of heat for this, for saying what I'm going to say, and that's fine. Go ahead. I want you to express your opinions, on via Twitter, Facebook, if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, whatever. But I know that this was Nathan's episode and this was Molly's episode. I know that. And I know that Stana's episodes are all the Beckett's mother mythology stuff. Um, but that said, and I'm not trying to take away from anything that Nathan or Molly did in this episode because they were pretty freaking fantastic. That said, Stana was amazing for the simple fact that, and I'm sure people didn't always, they weren't watching for Beckett this week. It wasn't a Beckett centric episode, but I adore Beckett. I think it's awesome that she's such a strong female role model. She's a little bit, she's flawed, but she's such a heroine. She's overcome so many things. She has so many issues, but she's working past them to make herself a better person. And I love that she's so strong and she always tries to do the right thing. She may not always do the right thing, but she tries to do what she thinks is the right thing. Even though she's tempted to do some, she's a cop. She could have used her authority, and she gets a little badass in this episode and the last episode, which is one thing I like. But I love that she's such a strong role model for women, and that she's in such an authoritative position. I mean, she's Espo and Ryan's boss. Like, she's like the lead detective, in their little group. So that's pretty cool. And that's a position that's typically held by men, and yet she still keeps her femininity. So that's something I really enjoy. So yes, I do look for the Beckett moments in every episode, and I've said this throughout the podcast. She rocked it. The entire cast rocked this episode. They really upped their game. But Stana, she wasn't in the episodes a lot because, like I said, it was a Castle and Alexis episode basically, and the second part was basically a Castle and a Castle's dad in Alexis episode, which was cool, and I enjoyed that. But Stana, she played a role like Beckett was different than we had seen Beckett. Because before, with her mother's murder and everything, she was the one that was kind of going all gung ho, and she was, going straight at him, and nothing was stopping her. Nothing was gonna get in her way. If she got killed, so be it. She was going to find who did this to her mother, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I like the fact that the roles were kind of reversed this time. She was the one that had to stay strong. She was the one that she could see what was happening. And in a way, I think she could kind of relate. She knew, oh yeah, I've been through this. I mean, yeah, it's my mom and it's his daughter, but I know I'm not going to be able to stop him. He's going to run at this. It's who he is. I would do the same thing. So she can't really hold it against him, but she's in the position, and this can't be an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to play. She's in love with Castle. She cares about him. She's his girlfriend. It's not easy to watch the person that you love, the person that you care about, go through something like this. She's a cop. She's in a position of authority, a position where she should be able to help him get his daughter back. And she came up empty. I mean, I know she had to feel like she failed him, was failing him, and she has to have some sort of a relationship with Alexis. She's worked with Castle for this is like 5.5 years. 5 years, 5.5 years. So, she's known Alexis. She gives Castle advice on a regular basis about Alexis. And now she's with him. They're together, they're dating. There has to be some sort of a relationship because I mean, she was there at Christmas. So even though we didn't see it on screen, there has to be some sort of a relationship between Beckett and Alexis. So, it wasn't easy for her. It wasn't easy for any of them because they all, love Alexis. She's a good kid. But it's your boyfriend's daughter is kidnapped. That's not easy. And like I said, she's in a position where she should be able to do something and she can't do something, or everything that she does, it doesn't work. So in the beginning, she knows that she has to keep it together for Castle. And you see her lose that just a teeny tiny bit. In the scene where there's blood in the van, just a little bit, she loses it, and you can see her get it back. But she knows she has to keep it together for him because she's the only one who can rein him in. Just like on her mother's murder, he was the only one who could rein her in. So she's keeping it in check, as much as she can. And then you really see how it's affecting her at the end of last week's episode, at the end of the first part, when she sends Castle home. That look that she has, that look, and Stana's great with looks. Like, she can convey an entire, like, book of emotions. You get exactly what she wants you to get with one look. I mean, she has the best expressions in television today. I do believe. But you get it, and that one look at the end when she sends him home, you can tell it's hell on her. I mean, it's emotionally draining. She's got to deal with Castle, but she's still, she's working nonstop trying to find Alexis. She's not having any luck. So yeah, it's emotionally draining, and you can see it's really getting to her. And then in last night's show, when she comes to the apartment and finds out that Castle lied to both her and Martha and went to Paris, by himself, you can see she knows. She's like, okay, we've got to do this because he's going to get himself killed. So that was the whole. I love that scene with the boys where she's like, you know, he's acting like a father. I have to act like a cop, and let's find his daughter before he does something stupid and gets himself killed. And I love this because this is like the second episode in 3 weeks where she's gone complete badass in the interrogation room. Uh, I loved it. She kicked when she kicked the chair with the girl, and then she threw the papers on her, and then the next scene you see her, once she gets her answer, she just like kicks down the door with one kick, and she walks in. I mean, she's like She-Hulk. It's like, you won't like me when I'm angry, so don't make me angry. That was pretty awesome. And I know I'm going off on a tangent about Beckett, and like I said, I know it's not her episode. I know it's Molly's and Nathan's episode, but Stana was awesome, and not taking away anything from what Nathan or Molly did, because like I said, they were excellent. But Stana knocked this one out of the park. She was the character of Beckett was going through something that was very difficult, and Stana hit the nail on the head. She usually does. I mean, she's great. Like I said, she has probably the best expressions on television today. And she really knocked this one out of the park. It was awesome. I loved Beckett's journey through the episode, and I loved, the last scene when they come home and she hugs Castle and she's like, please don't do this again without me. That's awesome. The fact that Beckett is now opening up more to Castle and she's being more emotionally vulnerable. I love that because that's such a huge step for her. That's huge for her. Uh, so I really love that. And then I loved when she then moved over and hugged Alexis. That was awesome. I have to say, one thing that I would really love to see in the uh, future episodes of Castle this season, next season, are more scenes between Alexis and Beckett. Because, like I said, they've got to have some sort of relationship because Beckett is a huge part of Castle's life now. And they're dating, everything, huge part of Castle's life. And like I said before, Alexis until now has basically been Castle's whole world, and now he's sharing that with Beckett. So there has to be some sort of relationship, and I mean, they don't have to go shopping every week or whatever she does with the deep fried Twinkie, but seeing them in scenes together, having some discussions or having scenes where she says, "Hey, Alexis and I went to lunch." We don't have to see it, but knowing that they have that relationship going, I think is very important. And I'd love to see the scenes because I would just love to see those two women together on screen. But like I said, even if we don't see it, if they actually, had a line referencing it every now and then, that they have, a little bit of a relationship, other than when Castle just asks for her advice on teenage girls and young women. One way I think that they could work that in, and I really hope that they do, is Kate had post-traumatic stress syndrome after she was shot, and obviously being kidnapped and held in a cage is gonna affect someone's psyche. So if Alexis experienced a little bit of that, it would be great to see Kate as a PTSD survivor, then help her through it. And, even recommend Dr. Burke, who, played by Michael Dorn, great actor when he's not playing the Klingon. No, he was great as the Klingon. I just don't like Klingons. Let me make that clear. Great actor, great voice. I'd love to see more of him in upcoming episodes, and that would be a great way to work in Dr. Burke because now Alexis might need some therapy, and that's someone that maybe she could trust because Kate would recommend him and Castle would trust him because obviously he worked wonders with Beckett. And I don't know if he's just a police like a cop therapist, but it would be nice to see maybe that tie in and see Michael Dorn have a little bit of screen time as that. Let's see. I loved that we saw a darker side to Castle. That's something that I think was kind of unexpected because every week you see him making joke. He's the charmer. He's the sweet, fun-loving guy. He's lighthearted. He doesn't take life too seriously. And then all of a sudden, you see him torturing a guy to get the information that he needs. And number one, the fact that Beckett let him do it speaks volumes. And then number two, the fact that he actually did it. We saw a dark castle, and I love getting to see that, and I'm sure a lot of you guys did. I love giving Nathan the chance to do more than just the fun castle. He got to be serious. He got to be an adult. You got to see tears. You saw. I mean, this is like an Emmy winning performance. He and Molly both, I think, deserve Emmys for this show, or at least nominations for this episode arc. I like I said, I love the Dark Castle. And then I love the scenes with his dad. That was really the fact that James Brolin played his dad was pretty cool. In and of itself, I'm a spoiler. I'm a spoiler person. I like spoilers. It doesn't really spoil the show that much for me because I still watch it. I kind of just I like to know what's coming so I know what to look for and see if it's what I thought would happen because I like to play the guessing game. So I saw James Brolin was going to be his dad, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be interesting. I wouldn't normally think of them together, but he's a good actor and Nathan's a good actor, so it's gonna be interesting. And I did. I loved the way that they wrote it. I loved the portrayal. I loved their scenes together. The way that they played off of each other. That was all pretty awesome. The fact that that Papa Castle is a spy or an intelligence agent. That was pretty cool. That's one thing that Castle does really well. They link all the episodes together. So something that they said 3 weeks ago may show up in an episode a year from now. And I love that continuity and the fact that the writers take the time and get it right. Because there's so many shows on television today that the continuity is horrible. I mean, it's one thing one week and one thing the next week, and Castle's not like that. I love that Castle is it. The continuity is amazing. They guys on their crew do an awesome job with that. So kudos to you. And I mean that's a reference. His dad being a spy was a reference to the two-part episode from season 4, where they were with that spy chick. I've only seen bits and pieces of this episode, so bear with me. When she made the reference, that his dad might be a spy, might have something to do with being a spy. And then in last week's episode, Beckett also said to him what he said to her in the season 5 premiere about that they've done it before with less to go on. And then in the season 5 premiere, when the morning after they woke up, and he said, "You're right, I had no idea." That was a reference to obviously the pilot episode. So I really love that Castle takes the time to interweave everything, and the writers do an amazing job throwing in things from a season ago or 2 seasons ago or all the way back at the beginning of the series. So I really really love that the continuity that they do, and this episode just I mean it went right on with it. And on a little bit of a girly note, the heels Alexis was wearing. And we all know about Beckett's heels. It's kind of a running joke about not a joke, but an ongoing thing. We see a pair of boots with heels or hooker boots with stiletto heels, or something with stiletto heels. And we're like, oh, that would be awesome, Beckett. There's like Beckett boots. That I mean, I have 3 pairs of boots with heels, and I call them Beckett boots. So and she runs in them obviously. And then we see Alexis with a pair of Beckett boots, the heels, and she's running in them. So the fact that the boots are awesome, clearly very awesome. But on a different note, there has to be some sort of class women have to take to be an actress that involves how to run and boot, because I'm telling you, it's not that easy, especially if you're clumsy like me. And the show is filmed, or it's not filmed in New York, but it takes place in New York. And I lived in New York at one time for 3.5 years, and there are still streets that have cobblestones, and there are cracks in the sidewalk sometimes, and potholes, and how you run in heels in those situations, it's ridiculous. It's very hard. I mean, I can't do it on flat pavement, much less sidewalks and cobblestones. And actually, in Molly's Twitter feed where she was live tweeting, there was something about it. Molly said, uh, running to the embassy in those high heels over cobblestones was quite a feat. Paul was running full out, and I felt like I was flying at his side. Well, for those of you that don't know, Paul is Nathan's stunt double. That was tweeted by Molly last week about how he and her and Rob Bowman were about the only ones that actually filmed in Paris. So he was running with her through to the embassy, and I love the fact that Molly said it was quite a feat. Because I mean, like I said, running in heels, it's not easy. And in the episode where Castle and Becky were handcuffed together, he asked her, "How do you run in these?" She never answered him, but yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to walk in heels sometimes, much less run in them. Okay, and something else that I'll talk about, kind of a carryover from last week. Gates has to know that Castle and Beckett are together by now. I know that they haven't said anything to her, and I know that she hasn't said anything, referencing that she knows. But aside from the fact that she saw them hugging and she saw them holding hands, and there was a clear shot of her seeing them holding hands. It's up in the air if she saw them hugging. Aside from that, Gates is a captain in the New York City Police Department. She worked IAB, which they find like the worst dirty cops to think that they can hide everything. So there's no way that they're together in her precinct and she doesn't know about it. Now, she may not know exactly when it happened, or the details, and she probably doesn't really care to know. But there's no way she doesn't know that they're together. And I love the fact that she hasn't said anything. And honestly, the way that if I were writing it, and I am by no means that good of a writer. I do write, but not I nowhere near that talented. If I were writing it, I wouldn't have her say anything until Kate comes into that precinct with an engagement ring on her finger. Because let's face it, guys, we all know eventually at some point Castle's gonna pop the question, and then everything that Stana has said in all those YouTube interviews about them getting married already and making babies, even though they're already sort of practicing on that, is gonna happen. So I wouldn't write Gates saying anything about it because it's gonna lead up to a great scene where Kate walks in, there's an engagement ring on her finger, and Gates makes some kind of a side comment about, well, it's about time Castle put a ring on your finger. And then there's the whole, you knew! And honey, I'm a New York City police captain. You were not having a relationship with him in my precinct, and I not know about it. Something like that. Obviously, I wouldn't word it exactly like that, but that's the general idea of the way, if I were writing it, the way that it would come out that Gates knew. And honestly, I don't think she would say anything unless it becomes a problem in a future case, which so far, Castle and Beckett are pretty good at balancing all that and keeping that from happening. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue. I mean, they made it through this whole Alexis ordeal and nothing serious happened. So unless one of them's life is in danger or something, I think they'll be okay. There was one thing, if I could change one thing, and I'm not saying I would change anything, but it was such an awesome episode. It was good even without the thing that I'm about to point out. But if there was one thing that could change it, I would change. And it worked out the way that they did it with Beckett not following him to Paris, because it was handled well. But honestly, I'm Stana speaks French. I probably probably would have utilized that and sent Beckett to Paris after him. You know, she would be an ally. She speaks French, and that's what I would have utilized it. I think it was okay the way that it was. I loved it the way that it was, especially because then you got the whole reunion scene when he came home. But if there was one thing, I probably would have utilized the fact that Stana does speak French. And use that to my advantage in the episode because really he's followed her everywhere basically, and I understand the whole I need to stay here and work from here thing, but at the same time she could have followed him. I mean, they would have all understood, I think. But, at the same time, like I said, I like the way it was handled. She stayed home, working from New York, working on it, and apparently she stayed with Martha for a while, so that was pretty cool, to see them together. And Martha, I think, is about as big of a casket fan as some of the rest of us, which is really cool. So I like that. There's not really. I mean, I think I've pretty much hit on all the high points of both episodes. I'm sure if I missed something, you guys will let me know. Like I said, you guys can, if you don't agree with me or if you agree with me, have feedback, whatever. Hit me up on Twitter at theoldhaunt1890 or on our Facebook page. Like I said, if you want to leave a longer comment, you're gonna need to go to Facebook because Twitter limits you to 140 characters. But let me know. If you agreed with me on this. If I missed anything major because I'm recording this and it's really late, so it's possible that I overlooked something. If I did, let me know. Shoot me a note. You can also email me at theoldhaunt1890 at gmail.com. Like I said before, there's no spaces, no dashes, no underscores in the handles, the IDs. It's just straight theoldhaunt1890. So that's pretty much the show this week. Like I said, I think I hit on everything major in the episode. Be on the lookout for our new castle question of the week. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook. Like I said, you can also email me. And thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with me. Like I said, this is my first time doing a podcast, so I'm sure there's things that I can improve on. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you thought worked. Let me know what you think didn't work. Nothing's set in stone. I can play around with it. Just give me some feedback. Let me know. And I'll leave you guys with something I think you're gonna enjoy. So yeah, thanks for listening.
A regular crowd shuffles in. There's an old man sitting next to me, making love to his tonic and gin.
He said, son, can you play me a memory? I'm not really sure how it goes,
But it's sad and it's sweet and I knew it complete when I wore a younger man's clothes.
Oh!
Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well,